A man in Washington looked up at the sky and noticed something strange. 9 bright blue lights moving in a perfect V-shaped formation.
And this was a day where there was good, clear visibility. And what Kenneth Arnold saw was 9 strange objects moving at high speed, flying apparently in formation.
The objects didn't blink like aircraft and didn't move like drones. At first he thought it might be some kind of military exercise, but the lights moved too fast and too smoothly to match any known aircraft. The sighting quickly spread through local newspapers and radio reports, and soon people across the region began reporting similar objects in the sky. Now, the U.S. Air Force has launched an investigation into what was captured in Washington's skies.
The Kenneth Arnold encounter is not only iconic, but it's also really revealing because this is the first time in the post-war era that we really have something that we could probably say is of possibly extraterrestrial origin. We're looking at a technology that appears to be far more advanced than anything we had at that time.
Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting. On June 24, 1947, a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold was flying his small plane over the Cascade Mountains in Washington. Arnold wasn't looking for anything unusual that day. He was on a routine flight from Chehalis to Yakima and had briefly diverted his route to search for a missing military transport aircraft, rumored to have crashed somewhere near Mount Rainier. The skies were clear and visibility was good. Everything seemed ordinary till something caught his eye. At about 3 p.m., Arnold noticed a sudden flash of light in the distance, like sunlight reflecting off a mirror. At first, he thought it might be another aircraft nearby. He scanned the sky carefully, but he only saw a distant passenger plane behind him. Then, he saw the flashes again, this time in a line to the north of Mount Rainier. As he focused on the source, Arnold realized the flashes were coming from a group of objects moving quickly through the air. Arnold counted 9 objects flying together in a loose V-shaped formation that stretched across the sky. They were bright and metallic, reflecting sunlight as they moved. He later said that those objects were thin, flat shapes that resembled pie plates or discs. The objects weren't flying like any normal aircraft. Instead, they seemed to weave slightly from side to side and still maintained their overall V-shaped formation. Arnold said that their movement was more like a saucer skipping across water. From his position in the cockpit, Arnold watched the objects carefully as they moved along the mountain range. Curious about how fast they were traveling, he decided to time them. Using the clock on his instrument panel, he measured how long it took for the UFOs to travel between Mount Rainier and Mount Adams while keeping their V shape. It moved at a distance of roughly 50 miles and crossed that distance in about 1 minute and 42 seconds. When Arnold later calculated the speed, the result shocked him. The object must have been traveling between about 1,200 and 1,700 miles per hour, and this is far faster than any known aircraft of the time. In 1947, even the fastest military planes could not approach such speeds. Arnold watched the objects until they finally faded from view beyond the mountains, and the encounter ended after less than 2 minutes. For Arnold, even though this experience was brief, it was also unforgettable. He watched 9 unidentified objects flash across the landscape in a V-shape at extraordinary speed. Whether there were experimental aircraft, natural phenomena, or something else entirely, Arnold was clear about one thing. He had clearly seen something unusual moving through the sky that afternoon, and he wasn't the only one who saw it. Other witnesses. Although Kenneth Arnold is the most famous witness of the 1947 UFO sighting near Mount Rainier, several other people in the same region reported seeing unusual objects in the sky around the same time. Their accounts are pretty interesting because they all describe similar shapes, speeds, and movements, even if the witnesses were in different places and didn't know each other. One of the early reports came from a prospector called Fred Johnson that was working in the mountains near Mount Adams. Johnson revealed that while he was using a telescope, he noticed 5 or 6 disc-shaped objects moving across the sky. At around the same time, Arnold also saw the V-shaped UFOs. The objects were round and reflective, and they moved very fast ahead. Johnson described something unusual happening with his equipment. As the objects passed above him, the needle of his collapse started moving erratically, swinging back and forth instead of pointing steadily north. He believed that the objects might have affected the compass magnetically, but he couldn't explain how. Another witness was L.G. Bernier, who lived in Richland, Washington. He revealed that about 30 minutes before Arnold's observation, he saw 3 strange objects moving fast across the sky toward Mount Rainier. He revealed that they were flying almost edgewise, which means they seemed thin and narrow from his viewing angle. Bernier compared their speed to that of a military P-38 fighter plane, but concluded that the objects were traveling even faster. He thought the 2 objects he saw were part of a larger formation moving through the area. Around the same time, another witness, who was Ethel Wheelhouse in Yakima, Washington, saw different flying discs moving at extremely high speed. From her location, the objects seemed to cross the sky quickly and smoothly, much faster than ordinary airplanes. Her description was much similar to what Arnold had seen other witnesses had seen around that time. Another witness was a member of the Washington State Forest Service, working in the Fire Lookout Tower in Diamond Gap, who noticed something unusual in the sky. At about 3 p.m., the same time Arnold saw his sighting, the lookout observed bright flashes over the Mount Rainier area. The flashes seemed to move in a straight line across the sky, and that suggests that the reflective objects were passing quickly at high altitude. USAF investigation. Now, the U.S. Air Force had to seriously investigate the UFO filmed in Washington. Kenneth Arnold's sighting quickly attracted the attention of the U.S. military. At the time, the United States was entering the early years of the Cold War, and any unexplained activity in American airspace raised serious concerns. Military officials needed to determine whether Arnold had witnessed a misunderstanding, an experimental aircraft, or something that could pose a national security risk. Soon after the sighting became public, intelligence officers from the Army Air Forces contacted Arnold. Investigators interviewed him in detail and asked him to write a formal report describing exactly what he had seen. So, Arnold provided drawings and careful descriptions of the object's shape, movement, and speed. Investigators revealed that Arnold appeared calm, consistent, and sincere about questioning. Even those who doubted the sighting believed that Arnold was describing what he saw. Then the military realized that Arnold was not the only one who saw the UFO. In early July 1947, intelligence officials started collecting and reviewing similar reports from pilots and trained observers. On July 9th, USAF Intelligence, working with the FBI, launched a quiet investigation of the most credible sightings, including Arnold's encounter. Analysts examined the flight paths, witness statements, and environmental conditions to check whether the object could be explained by any known technology or natural phenomena. Investigators didn't want to believe that this had anything to do with extraterrestrial factors. One concern was that the object might be advanced foreign aircraft that were developed by the Soviet Union. This was especially since it was after World War II, and tensions with the Soviet Union were rising. Another possibility was that Arnold had unknowingly seen experimental American aircraft undergoing secret testing. Scientists studied atmospheric explanations, like reflections, mirages, or unusual weather effects that could create an illusion. At the end of the day, the USAF gave a simple but pretty ridiculous explanation that Arnold saw a mirage or type of optical illusion. They say that the mountain peaks around might have created the appearance of bright objects moving across the sky. Although the USAF said this, they were obviously still suspicious and took this phenomenon very seriously. By the end of 1947, they created Project Sign, which was the first effort to collect and analyze UFO sightings. Project Sign later became Project Grudge, and eventually into Project Blue Book. Media attention and flying saucers. When Kenneth Arnold saw the UFO, his story quickly became a national sensation. Within hours of speaking to reports, Arnold's description of 9 fast-moving objects over Mount Rainier started spreading through newspapers and radio broadcasts across the United States. During interviews, Arnold tried to explain how the objects moved through the air. He told reports that the objects flew like a saucer if you skip it across the water. In other words, he was describing their motion. The object seemed to glide, wobble, and bounce slightly through the air, similar to how a flat stone or saucer skips across a lake when thrown. Arnold used the comparison simply to help people see what he had seen. But many reporters misunderstood the description and assumed that Arnold meant the objects were shaped like saucers. This misunderstanding quickly made its way into the headlines. Within days, newspapers were publishing stories about mysterious flying saucers seen in the skies over Washington state. The phrase was catchy, easy to remember, and dramatic enough to capture public attention. One of the earliest headlines using the phrase appeared in late 1947 when newspapers reported supersonic flying saucers seen by a pilot. From that moment on, the term stuck. The press repeated it across hundreds of articles, and the public started using it as the standard name for UFOs. Ironically, Arnold admitted that the media had misunderstood his words. He insisted that he was describing the way the objects moved, and not their actual shape. But despite the confusion, the phrase spread quickly, and many media platforms carried the news. Within days, reports of flying saucers started appearing from different parts of the United States. People started looking up at the sky, wondering if they might see the same mysterious objects Arnold had described. By early July 1947, hundreds of sightings had been reported around the nation. But Arnold isn't the only one to have seen different UFOs shaped in V formation as recently. UFOs like the one he saw decades ago are being spotted again. Los Angeles V shape.
So are we looking at a shape-shifting UFO here? Or could it be some kind of secret craft developed by a nation here on Earth?
In 2025, a mysterious UFO sighting over Los Angeles attracted widespread attention after witnesses saw a large V-shaped object slowly moving through the night sky. The sighting stood out because of the object's unusual shape, the brightness of its lights, and the fact that it was hovering for an extended period, rather than behaving like typical aircraft. This sighting was just as credible as Arnold's, especially since the video was captured by witnesses and started circulating on social media and around UFO enthusiasts. The sighting began when 2 residents were sitting on their balcony late at night and noticed a strange light above the city. At first, the light seemed like an unusually bright star. However, as they continued watching, they realized the object was moving slowly across the sky. One of the witnesses said that the light was much larger and brighter than the typical stars, making it immediately stand out against the dark background of the night sky. As the object moved, its full shape became even more visible. It was a dark, triangular or V-shaped structure with bright lights positioned along its edges. The lights created a clear outline that made the V-shape recognizable even in the darkness. Instead of flying quickly like a plane or helicopter, the object was moving slowly and smoothly, sometimes even hovering almost motionless before continuing its path. Fairbanks, Alaska. On the evening of December 4th, 2024, sky watchers near Fairbanks in Alaska were observing one of the region's most famous natural spectacles, the aurora borealis. The northern lights are common in interior Alaska during winter, especially during periods of increased solar activity, when charged particles from the sun collide with gases in Earth's atmosphere and create bright waves of green and purple light across the sky. Despite this aurora display, something unusual crossed the sky. Witnesses watching the lights described seeing a dark V-shaped object suddenly appear against the glowing backdrop of the aurora. Unlike the slow, flowing movement of the northern lights, the object moved extremely fast. Observers said it streaked across the sky and vanished in under 3 seconds, leaving little time to clearly identify what they had seen. The shape was one of the most striking features. According to reports shared online by witnesses driving outside the city, the object appeared as a distinct V formation, moving in a straight path across the sky. Because the aurora illuminated the atmosphere behind it, the object's outline briefly stood out against the glowing sky before disappearing into the darkness. The short duration of the sighting made it difficult for observers to capture clear images or determine the object's exact size or altitude. The speed of the object also caught attention. Witnesses noticed that the object crossed a large portion of the visible sky almost immediately. Compared to that, commercial airplanes and satellites usually take tens of seconds or minutes to cross the same distance. Even fast meteors, which can appear during meteor showers, usually produce a bright streak or visible trail. Witnesses reported that this object showed no obvious trail or fragmentation as it moved through the aurora. Another detail that witnesses noticed was the difference between the object's motion and the calm atmosphere around it. The aurora itself appeared stable and slowly shifting across the sky, while the V-shaped object cut through the scene, abruptly and silently. The sudden appearance and disappearance made this UFO sighting even more dramatic. In the same year, residents reported seeing similar V-shaped lights, this time in Minnesota. They also moved with super speed before suddenly vanishing. Minnesota Strange Lights.
Well, this is an interesting story. People in Northfield keep seeing mysterious lights in the nighttime sky. The sightings come as people on the East Coast report seeing large drones that they can't explain.
The East Coast sightings now have the FBI's attention, with the White House even chiming in.
In late 2024, residents across several parts of Minnesota started reporting unusual lights moving through the night sky. The sightings came from people in different towns and neighborhoods, many of whom were simply outside looking at the stars when they noticed something that wasn't behaving like a normal aircraft. What attracted their attention instantly was the brightness and motion of the lights. Witnesses noticed that they were solid, bright points that didn't blink like airplane navigation lights and didn't follow normal flight paths. Several people said the lights appeared to hover in place at first. Instead of moving steadily like a plane or helicopter, they remained almost motionless for a short period, as if suspended in the sky. Some witnesses initially assumed they were looking at stars or planets. However, the lights soon began moving together in coordinated patterns, which ruled out the possibility of ordinary celestial objects. People described the lights shifting positions while maintaining a formation, sometimes forming shapes that looked like a diamond or a wide V pattern. One witness revealed that he saw what looked like a small group of bright lights aligned in a neat formation moving silently across the sky. The lights were evenly spaced and traveled smoothly from one side of the horizon to the other. Unlike airplanes, there was no visible blinking pattern, sound of engines, or contrails left behind. The formation remained steady for several seconds before suddenly accelerating and disappearing into the darkness. Other reports described similar behavior. In some cases, the lights seemed to hover quietly before slowly drifting across the sky. Then, without warning, they would increase speed dramatically and vanish within seconds. Witnesses have emphasized how silent the objects appeared, even when they seemed low in the sky. This silence made the sighting feel even stranger, since aircraft flying at low altitude are usually audible. The shape of the UFO depended on who described it. Some said it was a triangular arrangement of lights, while others said it was a diamond-shaped pattern moving steadily from west to east. Some also said it was a V-shaped pattern, or a constellation of lights moving together as a single object. These sightings were part of a broader pattern of unexplained aerial reports in Minnesota during 2024. According to UFO reporting databases, dozens of sightings were logged across the state that year, ranging from glowing orbs to fast-moving formations of lights. Although this experience lasted for a few minutes, it left a strong impression. The U.S. Air Force has been seriously investigating the UFO filmed in Washington, which has been spreading online for years. Although the end of their investigation claims that it was just an illusion, it's hard to believe this. What do you think the truth is? Let's know your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.